President Donald Trump is expected to speak with his Chinese counterpart soon as the two sides prepare for an escalating trade war. The Trump administration's 10% tariffs on Chinese products kicked in today, while proposed tariffs on Mexico and Canada are on pause for at least a month. Beijing quickly responded by placing retaliatory tariffs on select U.S. imports. Starting next week, China says it will impose a 15% tariff on coal and liquefied natural gas products coming from the U.S., as well as a 10% tariff on crude oil, agricultural machinery, and large engine cars. China is also launching an antitrust investigation into Google. Let's bring in CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang for more on this. Weijia, what can we expect from President Trump's conversation with President Xi today?
Well, just to be clear, the call has not been officially added to the schedule. And the last that we checked, it is not happening today, but it is expected to happen, quote, very soon. And so when these two leaders talk, the White House says it was Xi Jinping who actually asked for this phone call, and they speculated that perhaps Xi would be willing to start negotiations. But of course, negotiations have been ongoing, and they haven't gotten anywhere, which is why the tariffs did go into place. The root of this, Lindsay, is the fentanyl exports from China. The Trump administration arguing that, they haven't done enough to curb the amount of that illegal drug flowing into the U.S., despite efforts by the Biden administration to do so. What we do not know is whether there's any kind of target for what would lift sanctions against China, and whether the Trump administration will respond to the retaliatory tariffs that China imposed on the U.S., like you just laid out. But certainly there will be a lot to talk about when they do finally have that phone call, which, again, we expect to happen in the coming days.
Sources say the president is considering an executive action that would dismantle the Department of Education. What more do we know about if and when this could happen?
Well, that's all we know, Lindsay, is that they are considering some type of executive order to start peeling away that department and gutting it, and give more responsibility to the states, which is something that Trump and his allies have talked about. But this is not just about, how the federal Department of Education operates with the states, but, it's about student loans, and it's an example. It's about the resources that the government provides these state programs. And so to answer your question, we don't know what any of that could look like. We don't know any details at all, except that it is under consideration.
Weijia, President Trump is set to host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House this afternoon. President Trump has repeatedly voiced his support for Israel. What do we expect to come from this meeting?
Well, I think the top line is going to be how Israel is implementing phase 2 of the ceasefire hostage negotiation deal that was brokered under the Biden administration, but of course, up to the Trump administration to carry out. And so that will be a huge topic of discussion because, we have to ensure that the parameters of that deal are being made. What's interesting is that the special Middle East convoy, Steve Witkoff, just spoke to reporters here, and he did say that the U.S. signed a deal that wasn't wonderful and insinuated that there might be some renegotiation of the deal. That was unclear, even though he was pressed on that. I also asked him about Trump's repeated claims that everybody should leave Palestine, that it should be, quote, cleaned out. And Witkoff said that Trump is approaching that from a humanitarian perspective because he says that Gaza is just not livable right now. And so it needs to be completely rebuilt. And that is why he doesn't believe anyone should live there. Of course, there's a big question about where those displaced Palestinians would go and the fact that they do not want to leave. And so there's a lot of unanswered questions, Lindsay. We also expect they'll talk about Iran's nuclear ambitions and normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia.
One thing I want to ask you in relation to Envoy Witkoff, I just pulled up the log from that gaggle, and he said part of the problem is that wasn't such a wonderful agreement that was first signed. It was not dictated by the Trump administration. We had nothing to do with it. When this agreement came out, wasn't the administration saying that he was involved?
They were taking a victory lap, Lindsay, because they claimed that without Witkoff's involvement, without President Trump's involvement, the deal would never have crossed the finish line. And so they were saying that they were responsible for, the deal being signed. And now that we are in a phase where it actually has to be carried out, you're right to point out that comment by Witkoff, because it suggests that they are leaving the door open now to changing the terms of the deal. And, it took months and months of diplomatic work by so many involved to get that deal done and get the framework done under the Biden administration. So there's a lot of questions about what exactly he meant. If it wasn't a great deal, why did he help broker it? Because Witkoff did go physically to the Middle East to get it done. And so, we don't know what's ahead for the future of this deal and all the terms and all the hostages that are still being held. We do know that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu will be holding a joint press conference later this afternoon, where I'm sure they will be pressed about this, Lindsay.
Okay, Weijia Jiang, thank you.